Welcome back to our tutorial series on how to make a deck building roguelike card game in Unity. This is episode 4, so right now you should be seeing a little card on the homework review for episode 3. If you have any questions or issues with this tutorial, please join our Discord and we will discuss it there. I'm more than happy to help. I'm also more than happy to provide any feedback that you might want on your own personal projects. I'm more than happy to help however I can. So today we are working on setting up the hand for our game where you'll be holding the cards. I want to have sort of like a fanning out motion of the cards, you know, like you do when you're like playing poker or some other card game like that. If you've seen Slay the Spire, that's kind of also what we want to do as well. So there's going to be a few different things that we'll be working through, but I want to focus on the hand management. I'm not quite sure how far we'll be able to get in this tutorial before we run out of time, so let's go ahead and get started. So the very first thing that we want to do in this hand management system is we need to create an area for the cards to show up in. So first let's go ahead and delete our card prefab because we don't need that anymore. And we're going to go right up here, we're going to right click, we're going to game object, UI, and we're going to go ahead and make a canvas. So jump over to our scene, going to double click on the canvas, going to kind of zoom out and give you a look at what it's going to look like. So this canvas, the whole point of it is it's going to be sort of like an overlay of our game. So we want it to have this render mode of screen space overlay. These other settings we're not going to worry about a whole lot, but we can go ahead and have this box checked right there. Okay. And remember, for our game, or for my game here, I prefer to have 256 in our pixels per unit. And that's, yeah, we can go ahead and have that set. And then for our UI scale, we actually want to set to scale with screen size. And typically, you're going to want to match your width, but this can change depending upon the game elements that you have. This little slider right here will let you determine that. As far as our reference resolution, we're going to set it to 1920 by 1080. Okay. Hopefully all that makes sense to you. What this is right here is it's just our starting resolution that we're going to scale off of. You can see right here our rect transform is actually just kind of grayed out. We can't actually make any changes to our rect transform because of the render mode of our canvas here. Now what this is setting up is this is where all of our UI elements are going to be held in. I am realizing that I haven't exactly described what a canvas is. So in Unity, a canvas is a fundamental concept, or fundamental component, that is used for rendering UI elements in your game or application. It acts as a container for UI objects such as text, images, buttons, and panels. The canvas defines the screen space where UI elements are displayed and provides control over their layout and rendering order. It's an essential part of creating an interactive and visually appealing user interfaces in Unity and allowing you to design and organize UI elements to enhance the user experience. Canvases can use different rendering modes, including screen space overlay, screen space camera, and world space to suit various UI elements. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to, underneath our canvas, we're going to create empty. We're going to name this Hand Manager. And over here, we're going to create a new empty, and we're going to set this as Hand Position. Now, these are completely empty, and they do not matter at all right now. There's not going to be any components in them currently. So next, we want to go down into our assets. And we're going to go into our scripts. We're going to right click, create C# script, And we're going to name this Hand Manager. All right, and it's going to compile. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and open up this Hand Manager script. So first thing we want to do is at the top, we're going to put in using and then the namespace that you have decided for your own personal project. Now this script is going to inherit from mono behavior. If you're curious about what that means, I have a video called 10 Things That a Beginner Should Know About Unity Scripting. Go ahead and give that a look, and we describe what mono behavior is in there. Basically, it allows us to attach this script to a game object and have various functions for that. So we are going to be using start, so we don't need to delete that. And we might be using update later, but right now we can go ahead and delete update. Alright, so the very first thing is we want to define our variables here. So we're going to start with a public. It's going to be a game object, card prefab. And we will assign card prefab an inspector. This is where we're going to assign our card prefab that we made in the second video. And remember, when we're defining variables, we want to set it public or private. We're going to define the class for it, which is game object, and then we're going to name it. Next thing we want is a public transform. So we're looking for that transform component. And this is going to be and transform. And then this is going to be the root of the hand position. So basically, whenever we're deciding where a hand's going to be at, it's going to be where it's kind of centered at. And then public float fan spread equals 5F, which denotes that's a float. So this is going to be kind of like how much your hand is going to be spread out. And we're setting this here so we can kind of mess with it in the inspector to decide exactly how much we want it spread out. And then finally, we're going to do a public list game object. We're not name this cards in hand. And then we're going to set it equal to new list game object. Just like that. This is going to hold a list of the cards in our hand. Or, sorry, hold a list of the card objects in our hand. So at the very start, we're going to just go ahead and go add card to hand. And then if you're in Visual Studio Code, you can mouse over this, click Quick Fix, and then generate method, add card to hand. And it'll make us a little method down here. Now, we actually want this to be a public void because we'll want to call it in the future from other objects. So this method is where we're going to be instantiating our cards. So instantiate the card. So we're going to go with game object, new card equals, and then we're going to go instantiate. And this is going to be card prefab hand transform dot position quaternion dot identity and hand transform. So if you look here, if we highlight our instantiate and hover over it, you can kind of see the parts of this function that we want to use. So we want to know what game object to use. We want to know its position, which is our hand transform dot position. And then quaternion dot identity, which is its rotation. And quaternion dot identity basically means no rotation. And then finally our transform parent, which is our hand transform. And then next we want to do cards in hand dot add new card. And then finally, after adding the card, we want to update hand visuals. And this is how we're going to be updating the position of the cards in our hand. So this cards in hand.add, what we're doing with this is we are adding this new card to our list cards in hand. Jumping down here to our update hand visuals, we're going to start with int card count equals cards in hand dot count. And then we're going to start a for loop. If you want some more information on a for loop, you can check out that 10 things beginners should know about Unity scripting. Do for int I equals 0. I is less than card count. And then I plus plus. And then we will do float rotation angle. And this is where that fan spread's going to come into count. And this is going to be a little complicated equation here. So I'm going to do fan spread times I minus card count minus 1 divided by 2. Yeah. Okay. Cards in hand. So in case I didn't explain that well enough, what it's doing is it's actually going through every single card and depending upon its eye position, it's calculating its rotation. That's why our list is important, so we can make sure we're having the correct spread for the amount of cards in the hand. So next we're going to go to cards in hand. We're going to look inside that array at position I, and then we're going to actually transform that rotation And it's going to be quaternion. That's Euler. It's going to be 0 float, 0 float, and then finally our rotation angle. And so we're actually going to want to have more than one card to start out with, so we can go up here to our add card to hand. And let's actually put in 6 cards in our hand. Now we're going to save. And then we're going to go back to our project. Let's jump over to our card prefab real quick. And then in this card data, we just want to assign a random card. Okay. And then on our hand manager, we're going to add that hand manager script. We'll drag this card prefab into here. Okay, and we'll drag our hand position to transform. Alright, let's jump over to our game. So let's go ahead and hit play. And I do see something down there, but they're especially small. Now this is because we now have our card prefabs as a child underneath our other canvas here. And so our canvases inside of our card prefabs are inheriting some traits from our parent canvas. So one thing to note, by the way, is that the first time I run this code, first time looking at them in game is when I'm recording. So you'll see some mistakes that I make, and I think that's important because, well, I'm not perfect, obviously, and you won't be either. And so you'll get to see how I manage these mistakes. And you can see, click on these, it does look like they are actually rotating. Excuse me, I was getting a drink of water. So let's go ahead and stop the game. And I think we can just increase our scale here. And let's go ahead and hit play. And there we go, we got our cards up. Now, I had mentioned that I wanted to have them spread out like a hand. We do have them spread out here, but they're not spread out nearly enough, and they're also not spaced separately. Now what we can do is we can go into our hand manager over here, and we can mess with this fan spread. And it will change whenever we reload the game. So let's go ahead and increase this to a 10. And then we hit play. And see, now they're more angled. Which is fine. But, like I said, I want them spaced out. So let's go ahead and work on that next. So we are back in our script. And the first thing I want to do is I want to go up to our little variables up here. I'm adding a public float, and this is going to be card spacing, and we're going to set this to 5F as well. And then we're going to go down into our for loop that we already have set up here. We're going to add a section. We're going to name this float horizontal offset. We're going to equal it to I times card spacing. And then we'll go to cards in hand. I dot transform dot local position equals new vector 3 horizontal offset 0f 0f. Okay, let's save, and then let's jump back into our game. Let it compile. Let's hit play. And it does seem like it's starting to offset it a little bit, but not nearly enough. And we do want it to be centered. So let's figure out the amount that we want it spaced. Before we do that, let's go back into our code, and then in here we're going to do void update, and then we're going to put in here update hand visuals. And then let's go ahead and save. This way we can dynamically change these variables while we are using it. Going back into the game, we're going to hit play. We're going to check on our hand manager here. And we can start working on our card spacing. Looks like about 100 is where we want it to be. And so as far as our fan spread, so 5 isn't too bad, but I think we wanted to do more. Honestly, I think that 7.5 is looking pretty good for our hand spread. Now, if you're looking at this, you can obviously see that the problem is that it is spreading them out, but that it's not like pulling the cards down. So we can start working on that as well. Let's go ahead and stop our game. Let's go back into our script here. We're going to add another variable, public float vertical spacing. I'm going to set this to 10F. Now we already found out that 100F is where we want this to be starting out at. Let's do that. And then we already decided that this we want at 7.5. So let's just set those like that for now. And then we can go down here. We can go to float vertical offset going to equal to I times card, vertical spacing. Now, the thing is that looking at this, we actually want it to be more like this over here. So we're actually just going to copy this, put it down here, change this to vertical spacing. We're going to do the same thing here. Change this to card spacing. This way it's doing it evenly in both ways. And we can go over here and file save. let's go ahead and jump into here. So looking at our vector 3s, so we have our x, our y, and our z. So we need to go ahead and change our y to our vertical offset. So back into our game, we're going to click on our hand manager object. We'll change our hand spread 7.5 because that's where we found we wanted it at. Our card spacing wanted at 100. Our vertical spacing we'll leave at 10 for now. And let's go ahead and click play and check out how it looks. So looking at this, it is spacing them out, but it looks like it's spacing them out in the incorrect order. So let's go to our card spacing. Let's put a negative here. And now we have it spacing the correct order, but our vertical spacing seems to be working, but kind of where it's staggering them in the same direction based off of the center. So we need to kind of have them the same on both ways of our center. So before we go back to our script, just put that negative in right there. All right, let's jump back into our script and figure out how we can do this mathematically. So what we actually end up needing is an arc, and so what we need to do is first we need to normalize our card positions between -1 and 1. So the way we're going to do this is get some space in here. We will do a float normalized position. We'll set this equal to 2f times I divided by card count minus 1. And then we're going to do minus 1f. And what this is doing is going to normalize card position between -1 and 1. Alright, and then down here, let's go ahead and get that all deleted. And let's use our vertical spacing times 1 minus normalized position times normalized position. And then set card positions. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. Jumping back over to our game. And let's hit play and see how that looks. Okay, so we are getting a little bit better, but we're getting some errors down here. Assign tip for prefab close not valid. Input position. So basically, I think we're getting too small of an input position. So let's go back into our script. We're going to change this vertical spacing to 100. And then let's jump back over into here and clear the console. Let's hit play. Ah, shoot. That's right. Gotta go in here and just go and change this to 100 as well. And there we go. We are getting a little bit better of an arc here. But it is a little bit too too much. Okay, so you can see here we can move our vertical spacing here, kind of decide where we want our cards at. So I think I like it at about 100. And I want our card spacing to actually be... I want to be able to see our little symbols. So I'm going to swap this where this is 100 and this is negative. And now we can see our little type symbols. And let's go ahead and increase our spacing a little bit. Out to be about 150, I think. And there, now we've got some spacing. And then we can go into our hand position here. And let's adjust where our hand position is at. And that looks pretty good to me. So let's just normalize this 480. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to kind of resolve this error message that keeps popping up. So let's work on that next. So let's stop our game. Let's jump into our script here. What we need to do is we need to do some catching for some special cases. For instance, I think that what's happening is that during our steps here, we have our add card to hand, and we're updating our hand visuals. And whenever there's only one card, it's kind of doing a division by 0. And so it's giving us not a number. And so that's causing the error that we're getting here. So let's go ahead and go if card count is equal to 1. Oh, let's put parentheses around this. And then let's copy this. Put this to 0f. This should be 0. And then let's copy this. And this should be 0f. 0f. And once again, this should be 0. So this is going to catch our one use case where if there's only one card in the deck or in the hand, it won't throw that not a number error. Let's go ahead and jump back into our game and test it out. So let's clear, and then let's hit play. And we didn't get the error, so that's good. One thing I did forget to do is I forgot to go into this hand manager right here. Go and change these to a negative. Change that to a positive. And I don't recall what the... So the card spacing wanted it to be 50. And I don't exactly remember what the vertical spacing we decided on, so let's go ahead and hit play. I think the 100 actually is actually pretty good. And then we wanted our position to be 480. Play. Oh, that's the wrong object. My bad. Our hand position wants to be at 480. Wants to be at negative 480. There we go. So now we have our card hand displayed down here. Next things we need to work on is we need to work on setting up a deck to draw cards from, and we need to be able to click on our cards and move them around. So I think the next part we want to work on is the deck, but I think we're once again getting up to our time limit here. But the deck is pretty quick, so let's go ahead and do that. It might make the video a little bit longer, but let's go ahead and do the deck real quick. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make a deck manager script. And we're not going to do any editing on that yet. We're actually going to jump back into our hand manager script. And inside here, very top, we're going to do public deck manager. And then down in our add card to hand, we can make some changes to this because we want to be able to pull in the card data dynamically. We don't want to just use that one preset card data. So we're going to do card data. And then we're going to set the card data of the instantiated card. This is going to be new card, which again we're setting up here. Dot get components. Card display and close brackets. Okay. I'll move my mouse all the way so you can see what I'm writing. And then card data equals card data. And so this is going to set the card data of the card that we're creating. Okay, so now we need to go up here to our start, and we're just going to delete all that. We're gonna leave start here because I think we're gonna be using it later. We'll save. Okay, and now we need to go make some changes to our deck manager. So now let's grab our deck manager script. Okay, and we can go ahead and delete all of that. And we're going to first make a public list. Of our card. Call it all cards. Equals new list. Okay. And then we're going to do a private integer, which is our current index. We're going to set that equal to 0. Alright, next thing we want to do is we want to make a function that allows us to add the next cards to our hand. Basically a draw function. So we're going to do public draw card. And then hand manager. And we're going to do if all cards dot count equal to 0, then we return. Sorry. Return. Okay, and then card, next card equal to all cards current index, and then hand manager dot add card to hand, next card, and then current index equals current index plus 1% all cards dot count. Alright, so basically what this is doing is that, oh, I forgot to put public void, sorry. So basically this is what this is doing is that it's giving us a function to draw our cards, and if the all cards count is 0, then we just return. But if not, then we're going to look at our next card in our card index, and then we're going to add that card to our hand, and then we're going to wrap around to the beginning when you reach the end of that count. It looks like I missed that right there. Let's go ahead and save. And then we're going to jump back into our assets here. We're going to make a new folder. I'm going to name it editor. I'm going to jump in this folder. I'm going to make a new script. I'm going to name this script Deck Manager Editor. So I wrote up this script on editing the Unity editor for our deck manager in the inspector. I don't want to go over it because I'm not going over how to make editor changes in the GUI in this video. But I am making a separate video about how to make GUI changes in Unity in general. So for now, I'm just going to include this script in a share on the description of this video. You can grab the script from there, just plop it into an editor folder underneath your assets, and it should work just fine. Okay, and then underneath our canvas, I'm going to make a new empty. I'm going to name this Deck Manager. And then I'm going to add our Deck Manager to it. Okay, so back over here, let's go ahead and make an entry here. We're going to go into our card assets. Going to grab the fire guy here, or Phi guy. Seems Phi. Put it in there, and then let's hit play. And let's see if it draws. And there we go. We're drawing some cards. Alright. So that's all nice and all, but we actually want to populate all the cards from the assets automatically. So let's jump back into our deck manager here. And we're going to go ahead and do a void start. And in here we're going to do load all card assets from the resources. folder. Let's go card. And then cards equal resources dot load all card cards. And then add the loaded cards to the all cards list. All cards dot add range cards. Let's go ahead and save that. And then we need to go to our deck manager, remove the card that we added in there. And then we can hit play. You can see we've got 18 cards in here. We drop this down, see them all. And then we can click draw next card. And start to see all of our different cards. And there we go. We have our basic functionality for drawing cards in our game. We obviously want to make a lot of different changes to this. But for now, this is where we're going to stop with this part of the tutorial. So let's talk about your homework before the next session. So what I want you to do is, this might be the most difficult homework we've had so far, because I'm going to give you very little information on how to do it. I want you to set a maximum hand size. Set it to whatever you want it to be. But set a maximum hand size to where whenever we try to draw a card, it won't add any more cards to the hand. I will give you a single hint, and that is that you will want to do this in either the add card to hand function or the draw card function. And that's all the information I'm going to give you on how to do it. It's difficult, I know, but I think that this is going to be a great exercise for you if you're learning to kind of get some more hands-on experience on what we need to do to create a functioning game. The next video, we're going to actually work on clicking on the cards and moving them around. And that should be pretty quick, hopefully. If it is pretty quick, then we're going to work on setting up our little combat scene so we can actually start getting a game loop going. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day.